And I think it's the human part of AI that is so being missed at the moment. And when we speak to technology kind of CTOs or people within the tech space about this, or the leaders within the tech space, just as we saw when we at the FTAI conference last year, is that they are treating this like any other software rollout in so many ways. And it's just not. And that's why when we have these conversations, you get one camp of people who go, it is so not, we've tried that, it does not work, particularly within large organizations who are seeing that there is now, people are using it 1-2% of their day. They're not using it required
nowhere near
work. Yet, they're being claimed that, oh, we've got this great adoption. That's not adoption. That's
no, logging in is not the same as strategic use. Exactly. I think, and that's it. There was, it was that quite, wasn't it? Like 4% of people are actually using it for in a strategic way in their jobs. So we are like nowhere near what this thing is actually capable of. But I think that's one of the and actually I'll get this point in there because it's a good little snippet, is the kind of transformation point. So in the past with like old software rollouts, like if we talk about Microsoft Office, they basically roll it out from on high and they say, we're all using this now, and you take a course and you develop a little bit of competence and then you use the tools, and that's kind of the job done. And with AI, it's so different. So it is like, I hate the word transformation, but transformation project, in that it's not just about using technology, it's about changing the way that you work. And that is like a change and a people and a culture. It's a human challenge, not the tech challenge. But also this point that actually all the research is showing now that the successful rollouts, so the businesses who are actually getting ROI from their AI investments, are the ones who are going top down. So they've got their ethical policies in place, they've got their AI strategy in place, which is obviously changing all the time. It's not a static document, it's something that they're reviewing over time. So that's coming from the top down. The bottom up, so people are being inspired on like an individual level to use these tools and experiment. They're giving time to these people, so individuals are experimenting with them, developing their own use cases and personally opting to use these things, because there has to be this individual agency, otherwise the project just doesn't work. And then on top of that, having that sideways transformation going on as well, kind of like working together, collaboration. And that's working, but you need a support to that as well. And I think that's the structure. That's why we put the team together, is to give that kind of like a structure to that process. It's not instead of that process, but it's just to support that process, to show team leaders, where they're getting the ROI, where the usage is coming, who's struggling, who's not. Some visibility. The team can come up together. And as we know, we're going to see, as I look into my crystal ball, but I think we're going to see teams taking full responsibility for the tools they use. They're going to have separate tools. If you're in the comms team, you're going to have different tools to the legal team, to the finance team. So you can't be assessing this from the top down is the point as well, because if you're doing that, if you're just choosing tools from the top down, you're going to be missing all the best in class tools. So best in class for a content or a marketing team looks really different to best in class for your finance department. These are two completely different things. And actually just staying on top of developments is a massive job in itself. And this is how it's really different to the past as well. You don't just get Microsoft Office and job done across the board. This is something that is developing and changing so fast. And the people who are keeping up, who are able to, assess what's out there on the market, get the ones that are get those tools that are best for them, figure out what's best in class for them, get them in, get everybody using them. The speed at which you can do that pays massive dividends. But if you're just thinking, oh, we'll just get a couple of tools and roll them out across the whole organization, you're going to be missing out on all of that value from specialized tools.
And what's really interesting, there was a point made on LinkedIn the other day, which is the people that are driving that process internally are not the usual suspects. Then there are often people, who are kind of hiding in plain sight to a certain extent, possibly a little bit like me, the older, passionate about stuff, or got life experience and can totally
see the big picture.
The big picture, exactly. So also, it's not something that you can just hand to a member of the team and say, you take on AI because you're a digital native or whatever.
You happen to be 25, so we'll trust you to do our AI rollout.
So that doesn't work either. Everybody has to take responsibility for themselves. And I think there is a sense that it's just going to happen. And yes, it will happen more. Of course, it will happen more. But if you as a business want to take responsibility and you want to make sure that your team is upskilled and you want to make sure that you're taking advantage of these new technologies, then you have to do something about it.
Well, yeah, absolutely. And I mean, that is the point of Atheni, isn't it? Yeah, exactly. That's the whole point of it. And I think this is the choice you have to make. Either you say, right, AI has an enormous amount of power. We want to harness it. 300% productivity gain sounds pretty good to us. I think we'd like that, please. Or on the other hand, you say, let's just let this roll out and kind of see how it goes. But, there are so many pitfalls in that way of doing things. I mean, one of them, like you just said about the teams as well, is that if you just leave this to roll out how it's going to roll out, you'll have one or two people within the team who are like just super enthusiastic about the whole idea. They see the value and they go off and they get super AI literate in their own time. They take courses in their own time and suddenly, they're up on the AI skills curve way ahead. And people on the same team have, you know, zero interest, lots of fear, complete misunderstanding, and they have no interest in using AI. So suddenly what you've got is just real disjointedness within teams. And that's one of the things that's coming out as well, is that if you just leave this to roll out however it's going to roll out, you end up with things like that, where you've got somebody miles ahead, somebody far behind, and this massive disjointedness that is actually a drag on productivity. So it's not even as though you're missing out on the benefits, it's actually worse. And this is like, these are just the kinds of pitfalls. Yeah.
And using it badly, you know, saying, yes,
such a risk.
Login. Yeah. So yes, I got to log in. So not understanding, and I saw that I was speaking to one journalist last year, and he was saying how he had been sent his biog, obviously by someone who'd been and found it on ChatGPT, and it was completely wrong. So the danger then, you know, and I see that the danger of kind of like reputation,
using it badly,
using it badly, and
awful.
It does hallucinate, and it will always hallucinate. I mean, I think that's the general view. It's our job as humans to know how to manage this tool, to know that, you know, if you're in a Ferrari, it's going to drive too fast. If you let it, if you put it down, it's going to break the speed limit. That's just the way that it is, because it loves to go fast. You're the one who has to steer it in the right way. You have to understand when's the right time to put the brake on, when's the right time to change gear, when's the right time.
That's the vital thing, isn't it? It's like using people, I think people who haven't used a lot of generative AI have this idea that it is a thing on its own. It is just a kind of a thing that has, you know, it's inherently biased, it talks like a robot, you know, all of these kinds of things. Whereas if you have actually used generative AI a lot, you understand that it can be configured. You can create project areas, you can get it to speak in a different way, you can get it to do, it can take whatever shape you want it to take. And I think this is the problem, that a lot of people who don't have a lot of experience in it are looking at it like that and saying, oh, it hallucinates, so I can't trust it. When actually all you need to do is have a verification system in place. It's just so simple. It takes 2 minutes to say, oh, I'm just going to verify this output, kind of thing. Just like if you were talking to a person and they started spouting numbers, you might say, oh, where did that number come from? Or can you give me a source for that? And you do the same thing with the AI. Oh, you just gave me a number and that's really cool, but could you give me a link to the source, please? And it might come back and say, oh, actually I got the number wrong. But you know, that's just like humans. So this hallucination thing kind of annoys me, because it's like, oh, it's supposed to indicate that the whole thing is useless. Give me a break. Like it's just silly. So I think that kind of understanding what to put in place to make it usable is major.
I love that. We have our combine harvester metaphor, which I think is brilliant, which is this kind of like powerful way of looking at your fields. You can harvest so much more. You can think in thousands of acres, you know, as compared to, you know, a century ago, 2 centuries ago, we were with scythes. And we could only think in a small amount of place, a small amount of land. And that's what we want people to think like. It's like, this is a tool. But if you let a combine harvester go without any direction, loose, it's going to decimate your entire farmland.
Absolutely.
Right? So it's going to go straight through the hedge. It's going to go straight to the house. It's going to go straight into the barn. And it's not
destruction.
Exactly. So this is something that it has that power, but we have to find a way to harness it. And that is I mean, that is human. That is human.
Absolutely.
And I think whilst AI remains in the hands of the technologists, though it's amazing, they've done a fantastic job at creating an amazing tool. We need to hand over some of that responsibility to the learning and development people, to HR people, and to communications people, change management people.
And it's that skill.
Implement these. These are new skills. These are not skills that we have been taught. We've also, very rarely do people continuously upskill through their lives. They learn on the job. That's it. They might do the odd courses. There are some things, you know, people go off and do their courses, but not everyone. And this is something you're going to have to keep on top of. You're going to have to keep using it. Think bilingually. Can I do my job? How can I use AI? And AI first. And is there a way that I can use AI to do this thing, this task, and to do it quicker and probably better? Let's face it. It's the knowledge, infinite knowledge of a lot of people. It doesn't mean it's always right, but it's always a good starting place.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think that skills point is massive. Like, I think one of the things that everybody has been commenting on for years now, ever since technology started to go faster, is that all of the literature that comes out is all around this idea that actually the skills that we had in the past that we needed in our workplaces, those skills that we need in order to drive results are just changing so quickly. And they've been changing for a long time because of digital, you know, progress. So as soon as these tools come out, everybody just has, you know, suddenly the skills that are required to drive the combine harvester are just not the same skills that you needed to wield the scythe, right? So they're slightly different skills. And the reality of kind of the world that we're living in now is that the skill demand, so the skills that we need, are changing so quickly. They're changing so fast that it's incredibly difficult to keep up. So recently we've seen, that's why we've seen things like the Coursera and the edX courses, you know, these little courses, and lots of people talking about lifelong learning and upskilling and these kinds of things, is because it just wasn't, our world isn't like it was in the past. In the past, we could do 20 years of schooling, and then we had 40 years of work where we use those skills. And that world just doesn't exist anymore. It's reskill all the time because of all the tools changing. And now with AI, that is changing even faster. And so suddenly we've got like turbo speed on the skills changing that we need in workplaces, but our ability to actually develop those skills is still snail pace. It's still analog. No matter how many Coursera's we bring in, it's just not fast enough to keep up. And I think that's what, like, you know, that's why we focus so heavily on the learning path within Atheni, is that has to be like worked into your workflow. You have to be building these skills as the environment changes. So if a new tool comes out that's relevant to your role, you need to be aware of that. And so you need something that's dynamic, that's keeping up, and that's giving you the skills that you need in your particular role, and being specific about it. So it's not the same set of skills that you need if you're a CFO or somebody in a content team, right? So someone in a content team spending a couple of hours learning how to automate social media or content marketing, that is 2 hours really well spent, because if you can learn how to automate content marketing, you're saving hours and hours per day, even per week. But then if you're a senior CFO, you don't need those skills. Those skills are not relevant to you. So it's being really specific about which ones you actually need in your role, because we just can't afford to be upskilling people in stuff that they don't need. It's being specific.
And exactly, and all the way through our education system, you know, it's like, are we going to be capable of creating a system, because the one that we have right now is no longer fit for purpose?
No, we're educating them for a world that doesn't exist.
I know the A levels that I did, pretty similar to the A levels that my daughter did last year.
Yeah, same GCSE syllabus. Yeah,
more. It's just absolutely bonkers.
Yeah.
So I think this is the point that we really have to help. I hope government needs to think about, you know, these piecemeal fixes are just not going to be enough now.
No,
it's like,
we need to use AI.
We need to use AI.
Now we have the tools, right?
And that's why in Atheni, that's what we're doing. And if you know, we are helping companies to kind of put a kind of like arm around this process to help them, to upskill their staff, make their staff feel comfortable, give the staff kind of like all the little mini tips and tricks that they need to be able to build this into their day-to-day, and at the same time give the company the ability to be able to measure it, to be able to see who needs some more support, to figure out where the value is going. Because with 74% of projects failing, I think that was Boston Consulting last year, you know, they can't afford
tens of billions that are being wasted on AI projects with no return.
Was people and process. The algorithms work, the technology.
No, the tech is great. There's so much technology. We have a glut of amazingly powerful technology. The blockage is in actually implementing it, actually applying
20
it.
years worth of implementation, isn't that what Ethan Mollick
At
in the US says? We just implement what we have right now.
Yeah, even if we just stopped, no more tech development.
That would just take years to implement all of that. And that's
to speed that up.
Hiding in plain sight. Productivity. It's the biggest, you know, problem that we in this country, many countries around the world have as well. Which is how do you improve productivity? How do you do that? Well, here is a tool sitting right here.
Right there.
It's accessible. All you need to do is to train your people how to use it and to change the mindset. Now, we're not going to get everybody on board, but goodness, if we could get a whole load more people who are able to do this, it'd be life-changing.
Yeah, and that's where actually it's less about the hours and more about how good are you at wielding these tools, which actually has some really awesome implications. Because, you know, if we think of, you know, the gender pay gap is often related to time as well, and thinking things like, you know, women who are managing families and stuff often have kind of 8 hours in the day, whereas men who are supported by somebody at home and, you know, having their children looked after, they have more like 12 hours in the day. And so that's one of the major factors as well. And actually, if we're moving more towards how good are you at wielding your AI tools, and how creative are you, and how far are you able to use these tools effectively, you're now looking at a world that is much less based around how many hours of work can you fit into a day, and it's much more about how results, right?
Results. And I mean, quickest route to the best result, that's been my mantra for the last 30 years, which is why spend copious amount of time doing something if it doesn't bring the result that you need. Yeah, I worked in PR, and where the client wanted a result, I knew what the result was. Better that we went straight for the result and we got it quickly than we spent hours in a process that didn't deliver the result. This is where AI is so revolutionary, which is like you can create results, and companies will start to be measured. I've seen job ads looking at output now, looking at how much your results.
Yeah, we don't care how you do it, just get it done.
Business, Atheni, we don't care. We don't care where our teams work from, what they do, how they do it. Just do it. Take responsibility. You're an adult. Get the job done. Doesn't matter. And this whole return to work kind of process is so outdated. It's not fast.
It's such a power play. It's so
it's ridiculous. Because actually, if you've got the right people with the right tools, who cares where they're doing it? You know,
how they're doing it, which hours. Exactly.
If they're not doing the work, then there's another conversation that has to be had. But if it's just a question of sitting in an office between 9 and 5 every day,
it's not going to be the winners. I
don't think so.
Yeah,
I don't think so. I think that's what's really interesting is that there's a lot of people pushing a lot of paper around the place. So, and a lot of bosses like to have them sitting there so that they can see them pushing the paper around the place.
And AI just kind of takes that away. Actually, it takes all that kind of drudge work away.
Yeah.
Makes it more about the real value.